Hello and welcome to week 2 of online learning. On your It's Learning page, you will find a link that shows you a video about construction geometry, which is a course that we are offering next year. So at your convenience this week, go ahead and watch that video. And then underneath the video link, there's a survey for you to fill out, whether you're interested in taking construction geometry or just regular geometry for next year. Okay? So what we are doing in week 2 is still about equations, but instead of equations with one variable, today we are working with something called systems of equations. You guys are really good at systems of equations. You've used them all year, well, for the last few months, and they're not that difficult at all. So what we know is that an equation is a math sentence with an equal sign, and system means more than one. So an example of a system of equations is 2x plus 4y equals 10. Just an example. And then another equation would be something like negative 3x plus 6y equals 12. Okay, so this is called a system of equations because there's two. Now notice this blurb up here at the top that says you do not need to write this down. This is just an introduction to what we're doing this week. So I have two equations here, hence it's called a system of equations. So when you see this, you're probably thinking, oh, that's easy. I go to the calculator, I press menu, algebra, systems of equations. Well, that's how you can do it if you have calculators. But what we're working on this week and what we worked on last week is to be able to solve equations without using the buttons in the calculator. So what we have here, before we even taught you the calculator, was a method called graphing. So you could solve for y and graph this, and the first line would look something like this. So if you graphed this first line, it would be a line on a graph. Then you can graph the second line. You could solve that for y and graph that one, and it might look something like this. Not exact, but something close. So now what we have is a space where these intersect. So the place where they intersect is called a solution, and that solution is an ordered pair. There's an x value to the solution, and there's a y value to that solution. So a system of equations is two equations that we're solving for the x and the y where they would cross. Okay, so instead of graphing, we're not going to graph this week. What we're doing is just solving by hand. So if you find a piece of notebook paper, let's go ahead and start with question number 1. So what we have today is called systems of equations by substitution. So many of you will remember how we did this. If you don't remember, just pay attention, and then you'll be able to pick it up. So what substitution method means is that there is going to be a letter that's by itself. So I'm going to circle the letter that's by itself. So it says that y is 3x minus 4. I'm going to use a box instead of using parentheses. So what I know is that y is 3x minus 4. So instead of the y in this equation, I can replace it with what I know that y is. So I'm going to rewrite the first equation, negative 2x plus 4. But instead of the y that's right here, I'm going to replace it with this expression that it said that y is. So that expression is 3x minus 4. Then I continue in the rest of the first equation. So I just rewrote this first equation, except that instead of the y, I replaced it with the expression that y is. Y is 3x minus 4. So now I can solve this. So to solve, we always start by distributing. I'm going to draw a border to help us out a little bit here. So we have a negative 2x that gets to stay. 4 times 3 is 12 with an x. 4 times negative 4 is negative 16 equals positive 4. Next, what you learned last week is that to solve for x, we have to combine like terms. Negative 2x's plus 12x's is 10x's. You can use a calculator to help you with your negatives. Then we have a minus 16 equals 4. So now to get x by itself, we move the constant, that's the number, to the other side. If it was minus 16, I had to plus 16. So that says that 10x equals 20. We get x by itself by dividing. So my final answer here is that x equals 2. So I'm going to go to my solution, which is in an ordered pair, and I'm going to write the number 2 in the x spot because x equals 2. So now what you notice is that we're not done yet because there's still this blank in the y spot. So what I'm going to do is figure out what the y value is. If you look back at this equation, I'm going to erase all this extra stuff right here. So if you look back at this equation, it says y is, oh cool, y is, y equals, that's what I'm looking for. What does y equal? Y equals 3, so that's the number 3, times x instead of x is a 2, minus 4. 3 times 2 is 6, 6 and a minus 4. 6 minus 4 is the number 2. So in this example, my y value is 2. Okay, so I substituted, I plugged in this expression into the other equation. I did all of my solving just like I did last week. I put that answer in the ordered pair for x. Then I go back. Y is 3 instead of x. I know that x is 2, and then minus 4. Okay, so go ahead and try this one here. So I do, that's what you're going to work on. I'm going to start you off though, just because it's early. So what we have here, we have a letter by itself, so I'm going to circle it. It says y equals. Then we're going to put a box around what y is. Y is 3x minus 13. So I'm going to write the other equation, 4x plus 5. Oh, but instead of this y, I'm not going to put y. I'm going to put the expression for what y is, and then equals 11. Okay, so go ahead and work through this and see what you get. Solve for x, and then plug it back in to solve for y. Go ahead and try number 2. Okay, when you're ready, let's take a look at number 3. So in number 3, same thing. We find the letter that's by itself. Here it is. His name is y. He's all by himself because it says y equals. So I'm going to put a box around what y is. Y is 5x plus 4. So now I rewrite the other equation, negative 6x plus 2. But instead of this y, I'm not writing y. I'm writing the expression of what it said that y is. Y is 5x plus 4. Then it says equals negative 12. Okay? So now it's just a one variable equation. We're just solving for x, just like we did last week. So to solve for x, I have a negative 6x. I distribute 2 times 5 is 10 with an x. 2 times 4 is 8, and it equals negative 12. Okay, in the last video last week, we combined like terms. Negative 6 plus 10 is the number 4 with an x plus 8 equals negative 12. We need to get x by itself, so we subtract 8 from both sides. So 4x equals negative 20. Get x by itself by dividing. So x is negative 5. So now in the x spot of the ordered pair, I would know that they cross when the x value is negative 5. So now I don't know what y is yet because this spot is still blank. So I go back to the original equation. And it says right here, ooh, y is. Okay, that's what I need to know. I need to know what y is. So y is 5. Instead of this x, I'm going to replace it with what I now know that x is, plus 4. So now I can solve. So y is 5 times negative 5 is negative 25 plus 4. So that means that y is, make sure I'm doing this right, I am. So y equals negative 21. So in the spot for y, I'm going to write negative 21. Okay, so go ahead and try the same thing with number 4. You have a y equals, that's the letter by itself. We know what y is, so we're going to replace this y in that equation with what we know that y is. Okay, try number 4. Follow your steps for number 3 if you get stuck. Go ahead and do number 4. Okay, let's take a look at number 5. So in number 5, same idea. I still have a letter by itself. But in this one, what is the letter? The letter is not a y. For this one, the letter is an x, which is fine. So I know what x is for this one. So I'm going to rewrite the top equation, so 2. But instead of x, I'm not going to put x. I'm going to put what I know that x is. X is negative 2y plus 7. Then it says plus y, which is 1y, equals 5. Y is the same as 1y. So now I solve because I substituted instead of x. I replaced it with what I know the x is. So I rewrote this top equation, but instead of x, I put down the expression that it says that x is. Okay? So what I have here, I'm going to start by distributing. A number in front of parentheses gets to multiply. So negative 4y plus 14 plus 1y equals 5. Now I combine like terms. Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3y plus 14 equals 5. To get y by itself, we move the number first. I'm going to subtract 14. Negative 3y equals 5 minus 14 is negative 9. Now we get y by itself by dividing negative 3. Negative 9 divided by negative 3 is positive 3. So in this one, it says that the y is positive 3. The letter that stayed here was y. So y is 3 means I'm going to put a 3 in the y spot of the ordered pair. Okay, so in this one, I don't know what x is. What's the x? I don't know. So we have to solve for x. To solve for x, I go back to the equation that says, hey, look, x is, okay, x equals negative 2. Instead of y, I know that the y is 3. It says it, y is 3 right here. Eee, that's not a good arrow. My ugly little arrow. Okay, so negative 2 times y. So negative 2, y is 3, plus 7. So x is negative 2 times 3 is negative 6 plus 7. Negative 6 plus 7 is positive 1. So my x spot is a 1. Okay, so I'll start you off on number 6. So at number 6, we start by circling the letter that's by itself. And we see what its expression is. Then I'm going to write that equation of 4, but instead of x, I know what x is. X is negative 4y plus 8. Then we have plus 6y equals 12. So go ahead and take number 6 and solve for y. Okay, next up, number 7. Number 7 is the same idea. I have a letter by itself. That's for substitution. I have a letter by itself. I know that x is 1 minus 4y. So I'm going to rewrite the other equation by writing a 2. Instead of x, I'm writing 1 minus 4y, because that's what x is. Then it says plus 7y equals 3. So I substituted instead of x. I plugged in what the equation told me that x is. So now to solve, we start by distributing. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8y. Bring down plus 7y equals 3. Combine like terms. The 2 gets to stay. Negative 8 plus 7 is negative 1y equals 3. Now to get y by itself, we move the number first. Subtract 2 and subtract 2. That leaves me with negative 1y equals 1. Get y completely alone by dividing. That's always our last step. So y equals negative 1. So in my ordered pair, I know that the y value is negative 1. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my original equation. I don't know what x is. My x spot of the ordered pair is still blank. So I go to this equation right here. X is 1 minus 4, but instead of y, I know that y is negative 1. So now I can solve for x. X equals 1. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. Be careful. Remember PEMDAS way back in the day. We have to multiply first. So now 1 plus 4 is the number 5. Okay, 5 comma negative 1. So go ahead and try number 8, a little bit easier, but the exact same steps. You have a letter by itself, you're plugging it into the other equation, and you solve. Okay, go ahead and do number 8. Okay, so what we're doing today is actually a little bit different from what we did last week because we are offering you guys a lot of extra credit that you can work on, a lot of bonus. So at this point in the video, numbers 1 through 8 are the only problems that are mandatory for this week. So if you're done and you're like, oh, my brain, I can't do anymore, that's fine. You can stop the video right here. You are more than welcome to look at my pretty little stop sign and stop this video here. Now, if you want to keep going and you're like, yay, I love math, or oh my goodness, I'm so bored, I want to keep going, that's fine. So you can keep going with us, but it's going to be for extra credit. So every question that you do after number 8 is considered extra credit. That's why it says bonus challenge problem, bonus challenge question. Okay, so if you're done, you're like, I've done enough for today, this is it, then that's fine. You can stop after you complete 1 through 8, which we just did. If you want to keep going, number 9 on are extra credit. Okay, so for those of you that want to stay on, let's go ahead and continue with number 9. So the reason why number 9 is a bonus challenge question is because we don't have a letter that's by itself yet. So what we need to do is get a letter by itself. So to get that y, it's almost by itself, but it's just 2x is in the way. So to get rid of a negative 2x, I'm going to add 2x. So that leaves me with the question y equals, put the variable first, so 2x, and then the constant. So now I have a letter that's by itself. Now I'm going to rewrite the top equation, so that way we have everything nice and pretty right here. So now this looks just like what we did before. I have a letter by itself, so I circle it. I know what y is. Y is 2x plus 8. So instead of this y right here, I'm going to replace it. So I'm going to write that standard form equation, 3x plus 2, but instead of y, I'm replacing it with 2x plus 8. And this whole thing equals 9. So now, just like before, we're going to solve for my variable. We need to distribute to get rid of parentheses. So 3x plus 4x plus 16 equals 9. 3x plus 4x is 7x plus 16 equals 9. We get x by itself by subtracting 16. 7x, you can use a calculator if you need it. 9 minus 16 is the number negative 7. To get x by itself, you divide by 7. So we end up with x equals negative 7 divided by 7 is the number negative 1. So my x value is negative 1. Okay, so now what I don't have is a y value. I don't know what y is, But I do know that in this equation right here, it says, hey, look, y is blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to use that equation. Y is 2. Instead of x, I now know that x is -1 plus 8. So y is -2 plus 8. So y is 6. There it is. So go ahead and try number 10. I'll help you get it set up. So in number 10, we need a letter by itself. To make a letter get by itself, we move the x, plus 2x plus 2x. So this becomes y equals 2x plus 16. Then you rewrite the other equation. Okay, now substitute because we have a letter by itself. Not too bad. So if you want to keep going, we have 2 more questions, and then we are done. Okay, number 11. So in number 11, this time the x is a variable. That's going to be easy to get alone. We just need to move the 4y by subtracting 4y. So this equation becomes x equals, change the color, x equals -4y and a positive 8. I rewrite the top equation that was in standard form, x, y equals number. And now I'm ready to substitute because I have a letter that's by itself. So in the original equation, I'm going to write a 4. But instead of this x, I'm replacing it with what it says x is, plus 6y equals 12. Get rid of parentheses by distributing. -16y plus 32 plus 6y equals 12. Combine like terms. -16 plus 6 is -10y plus 32 equals 12. Get y by itself by subtracting 32 from both sides. So -10y equals -20. Get y completely alone by dividing -10. So this tells me that the y value is 2. I don't know what x is yet, so I'm going to make some room. And I'm going to go to the equation that says x is, right here. It says that x is -4 instead of y. I know that y is 2 plus 8. So x is -8 plus 8. -8 plus 8 is 0, which is fine. That's a number. So these 2 lines would cross at 0, 2. Okay, so go ahead and try that last bonus question. Number 12 is our final extra credit question for video 1. Once you've completed video 1, go ahead and head to video 2. You can do this on a different day if you want. Just make sure you have it done by Friday at 3 p.m. So you'll have video 2, and then you'll have 4 easy practice questions, and then you're done for this week. Okay? If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email your teacher. Have a good day. Thank you.